everybody. Welcome to another podcast from iPost. It's called Email Never Sleeps. We bring on some of the smartest minds in the world. I'm Andrew Kordek. I'm the VP of Customer Engagement here at iPost. And I wanted to introduce my very special guest today, Alex Palau of All About Email Marketing, right? So Alex, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background and your street credibility here.
Hello, everybody. Hi, my name is Alexandra Palau, and I am an email marketer, 20 plus years. Yes, I have been started as an HTML developer, and then turned into an email marketer totally by accident. So I'm very excited to be here.
So you fell into email marketing.
I really literally fell, and now I have my own company, and I provide strategy and direction on email.
And you know what's funny is that when I think about people who've been in the industry that I have, right?
Yes.
It just sucks us in, right?
It does.
We love what we do.
I do.
You and I have seen each other present over the years, and it's great. So the topic today is actually a pretty interesting one, and it plays off of an Email Never Sleeps that I did with Al Iverson a couple of months ago. But what we're going to talk about today is, we talked about before with Al about why you should clean list. Now today what we're talking about is what happens in your email program if you don't clean your email list. So I would love for you to start and tell me what happens. Tell me a story. What happens if companies out
delivery. Let's talk about deliverability. Such a long word, right? But yes, it's one of the things, I think that's one of the hottest things right now, right? A whole bunch of emails are going into spam. People don't understand why. And I'm like, have you cleaned your list? And they're like, but I have a big list. I'm like, that's amazing. But the thing is 20 to 40, sometimes even 50% of them are not engaged with you. So you're really not doing anything, right? Actually, you're harming your reputation. You're harming your deliverability by having these emails that are no longer performing for you. So people get really stuck on this number situation. And then it doesn't really affect, actually it benefits you to actually get rid of these, these people. Go ahead.
Because if I'm a brand and I come to you and I'm like, hey, look, my email list size is 20 million. This is a list that I've acquired over the last several years. Somebody's got to do something, right? At some point in time, why would I want to cut it out? Like, why would I want to get rid of parts of my email list that when I press button, I'm like, someone's got to do something at some point in time. What do you say to somebody?
We look at the data first, right? So I'm like, okay, let me take a look at the data. I can't tell you where to go if I don't know where you are, right? So the data is going to tell me the story. And with data, I can prove to them, I'm like, listen, this is a good portion of your list that you're not doing anything with. You're going to improve your deliverability. You're going to improve your sender reputation and your inboxing, right? And you're going to reduce costs. So there's multiple benefits as to why you want to do this. And it's it's not a hard strategy. That's the thing. It's something that you can easily automate, right? You set it and you check it. Don't set it and forget it. Right? Set it, check it, and give it time. Give it, 3 months, every 6 months, right? So I just show them with data. I'm like, listen, this is I tell them the story, and they're like, no, but it's going to affect anything.
But you got like marketers who be like, look, I work for a global brand. Everybody should know who I am.
I've worked for global brands too.
and you know what? Gmail should just let us in emails. I mean, we are legitimate vendors, right?
No.
Around the world.
So let me tell you a little story.
Yeah.
So they gave me this list in this company. I was building their email program. I'm like, oh, we have this list. I'm like, okay, let's get started. We start. Guess what happened? Google blocked us. And I'm talking a global company, right? And they're like, okay, can we speak to them? Can we pay them? I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. It could take 4 to 6 weeks for us to start getting into the inbox again. And it's because you didn't clean your list and you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So as marketers, it is our responsibility with the expertise that we come with and explain things that they don't necessarily want to hear, but they have to hear. because it will affect them in the long term. And I know as email marketers, we get a lot of pressure to be like, send it now, just send it to everybody, send it to everybody. And the pandemic was a great example. Like we try to push back, let's segment, let's do this. No, let's send it to everybody. I'm like, you're going to affect your sales in the long run, and it always happens. So it doesn't matter who you are. The Googles of the world don't care. Don't give a right? So they don't give a frick. Right? They don't. And they think that with money, these global companies think because we're recognizable, we're like worldwide, it doesn't matter. Everybody's in the same level playing field. And that's it.
One of the things that we talk about, if you don't clean these lists, right, and you run into a deliverability issue, think about this, everybody. We work in a world of speed these days, right? We can get information as fast as we can. We can push a button, send an email out to 30 million people and get instantaneous results, opens, clicks, conversions, everything. And we're so programmed to do everything fast. The problem is that when you send an email out and you have a deliverability issue because of an old list or because of something else that you acquired, or the notion that you feel like you should just be in the inbox, that's where time slows down in email. Is deliverability issues. No longer are the days you pick up the phone and call somebody on the bat phone and go, hey, guy, whatever, right? That's where we said people, these big eyes.
Yeah, they
right. Everything slows down. And then when you use the term 3 or 6, and I've seen it as longer than that to get off of these blacklists.
Oh, yes.
Time out, right? Like
it could take months.
Why can't we just get off these lists? Because everyone's used to going so fast. So I have an interesting story. I had the similar thing, right? Large brand, felt like they could do anything and everything that they want, flip the switch on DMARC, instantaneously put it to P equals reject, blew up everything, right? And it was more along the lines talking to some of the technicians over there. They're like, well, we don't know what happened. And I'm like, well, because you didn't take our advice, right? But if you don't take and think about your list, cleaning them and making sure that you've got everything, don't assume that who you are or who is going to just automatically get you into the inbox. Conversely, what if you're a small company and you're up against these giants? Then that becomes way more important.
Yes, it does.
As a small
the smaller the company, the more critical the strategy has to be implemented. But then again, they get stuck on the number. I'm like, it's not about the number, it's about the quality, not the quantity.
What are you keep talking about data, right? And we love data.
Yes.
You and I are data nerds and stuff like that. But what are a couple of the critical pieces of data someone should be aware of in order to feel like maybe it's time that I do clean my lists?
Yes. The most important metric to me is really the clicks. Are you seeing a decline in the clicks? Because the open rates, it's kind of iffy nowadays, right? But let's be honest, it has always been iffy. The whole time. It's always has been a directional metric, but you still want to incorporate it just to kind of measure, are you seeing an increase? Are you seeing a decrease? Clicks, right? You're seeing a decrease. Okay. Are you seeing an increase in spam? Are you seeing an increase in unsubscribes? Right? So it's kind of like, hey, if you see that the balance is tipping one way versus the other, you have to take a look. The data will tell you. It will tell you what segments, or are you sending it to everybody and their mother, right? Maybe if you start segmenting, obviously you're going to see better results. But even with segmentation, it does not take care of your cleanliness. It does not take care of that. So that's why you set up an automation and you look at the data to determine, depending on your purchase cycle. If you have a purchase cycle of 6 months and you're actively sending emails, guys, you have to send emails. Okay, because if you don't send emails, everybody's going to be inactive.
Totally.
So when I look at data, especially for the smaller, medium-sized businesses, right, that they don't send as much as these global brands, I tell them, you're only sending 2 emails a month. It's really hard to gauge inactivity when you're only sending 2 emails a month. I need you to send 4 to 6. They're like, what? I'm like, yes. And consistently for like 6 months for us to really truly determine who is your inactive in there. So there's so many tactics, right, that they have to do in order to implement something like this.
All great stuff. And I will say this too, right? The cost to hygiene your list, right? The cost to take a sample of your list and look at the cleanliness of it, right? Are there confirmed spam traps in there? Are there
spam traps? Yes.
Issues with formality of the things? Are they dead email addresses? The cost to do something like that, and there's lots of great partners out there that I think we all have, right? And you get what you pay for, right, when it comes to list hygiene. So don't always go with the cheapest. Go with the one that you feel is going to give you the best insight onto it. And I've seen companies run sort of a bake-off between two different list hygiene companies. But the cost is so small these days in order to do it. It's preventative maintenance, right?
Yes.
It's like going and getting a checkup with your doctor, right? To make sure that there's nothing really clearly wrong. And so
Absolutely.
Don't think of it, you got to kind of do everything up front. So yeah, your data aspect is spot on, but I would also encourage you guys to say, you know what, talk to your vendors, go to somebody that you know and trust and say, look, I'm thinking I might have an issue, or maybe I won't, I don't want to pare back my list, but can we just run a sample size?
Yes, absolutely.
It's literally, all of that. So let's switch just a quick topic real quick here, right? When we start talking about what happens if you don't clean your lists, right? What happens when someone gets trapped? When someone isn't proactive and then becomes reactive? What are your 2-3 bits of advices that if they don't clean their list and then something happens, what's your first line of advice to a client?
I try to educate, right? As much as possible. I think as email marketers, a good chunk of my job is to educate and explain, right? So I try to educate, not make them feel like, oh, you don't know anything. No. There's people that really, truly don't know. So we have to, as marketers, be responsible and teach them and educate them and say, okay, let's go ahead and just get you most engaged, right, from the last 30 to 60 days. And let's start there. Are we looking at a complete block, or are we looking at a Google block, or are we looking at a Hotmail block, right? So we have to kind of look a little deeper in and look at the data, where is happening. I did have a situation at one of the global companies I worked for that we had a list that we shared among brands. And we were one of the brands that the list didn't really kind of match up as much, right? It was kind of like a downgrade of sorts. So it never really performed well. But guess what happened? We got spam trapped. Spam house. I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, do you understand that now we're blocked across our whole program because of one list that we send once a month? So, it's education. It's explaining the strategy of why we should or we should not do something. But yes, if something like that happens, we approach it from a data perspective and we try to understand, okay, who is blocking us? Again, is it global? Is it localized to one? And then we take the measures to start sending to the most engaged first. And then we start trickling in 500 at a time. It is an extremely tedious process. It is boring. Okay, from an email marketer, it is not sexy. It is boring as hell. Okay, and it takes time. No, now instead of me as an email marketer for you spending my time on increasing your revenue, now I have to spend my time fixing this disaster.
My bit of advice, and that's such great advice. My first bit of advice is to take a deep breath.
Yes.
Because guess what?
It happens.
We've all been there. It happens. Every brand in the world has had problems.
Don't feel bad if as an email marketer it happens to you. From the biggest brands to the smallest little mom and pop, it happens to everyone. So don't feel like you did something like, oh my God, no.
Now, the thing is that then you need to take a step back and say, what's the financial impact of all of this? Right? Look at the data. But if you haven't cleaned your lists in a while, now you have to go into reactive mode. And reactive mode, like we just talked about, sometimes takes time. What you need to do is then attack it. And then guess what? And in some cases, you have to start over again. In other words, you have to do what would be a re-IP warm or an IP warm if you're on dedicated, or you need to take a step back and dial everything back and be okay with that, and have the ability to educate people that perhaps maybe are breathing down your neck as an email marketer to send more emails out the door, right? And to then make a financial case to say, if we keep sending to this cohort of 10,000 people, this is what's gonna continuously happen, which will then, you know, spiral into us losing revenue, whatever business we're in.
Absolutely.
But we have to make the choice, the financial choice on whether or not, you know, to do this. And I think that boils back, you know, we keep beating the drum, you know, hygiene your list, hygiene your list. And everyone's like, yes, hygiene your list. And then you're like, we should hygiene your list, but we got to cut out 30%. And people go bananas. Well,
they do.
Right. And I get it. Right. We all are judged sometimes by how big the list and the potential it is. But what we don't realize is that there's financial long tail at the end.
100%.
At the end of the day. So let's wrap up here, because I want to keep this short. You've been so insightful. What's your final thoughts? Give me your final thoughts on this topic in itself, of what could happen if you don't do it, and then give your contact information, and I'll wrap up with my thoughts.
So I think you said it correctly. Really, when you are dealing with CMOs and you're dealing with higher ups, which I dealt with a lot throughout my career, it is about the numbers. So you have to translate that 30% that you're removing, right, into a financial story, right? And they will listen. It's not about opens and lowers and this. Do not go into it like that. Go into it with hard facts. You get the average sale of, you know, the average revenue from your email, and you multiply it. It's really not that complex. Don't overcomplicate it. Make it very simple, especially for the higher ups, which they don't care about the minutia. They care about the what's the impact, right? So keep your eye on your click-through rates. Keep your eye on, right, the unsubs and the spam complaints, and build your case, because you're gonna get no's. You are, but you are the subject matter expert, and you have to speak up, because the financial impact can be massive when you are blocked, and it is just a nightmare for you and for them as well. So be proactive. Be proactive, and you know, if you don't have a strategy set up, go ahead and start working on that now. And
contact somebody like you that has been around the block.
Yes.
That can do.
We can have a conversation. Yep.
Yeah, have a conversation with somebody that's been doing this. It's okay. My final thoughts are this: getting into the inbox, deliverability, is not a right. It's a privilege.
You have to earn it.
You are privileged to get into the inbox. And whether you're mom and pop pizza store or you're a global brand that sends 1 billion emails a month, no one cares. And by no one cares, the ISP doesn't care who you are, just that you're actually doing it the right way. So treat it as a privilege, and treat it as going into proactive mode. And it's okay to talk to people and get advice. Alexandra, where can someone reach you out? On LinkedIn?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn. I am all about emailmarketing.com, and my personal website is alexandrapalau.com. And I also speak Spanish. So for the Spanish speakers out there.
She doesn't drop any Spanish curse words, and we talked
about I talked about it, but I can just say coño. That's about it.
There you go. Everybody.
But yes.
So
thank you.
Great. Alexandra, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
For your time. Catch us on our next episode of Email Never Sleeps, where we might have some more interesting guests. But I wanted to thank again Alexandra today.
Thank you
for joining. Have a great day, everybody. And if you have any questions, reach out to one of us. Cheers.
Absolutely. Cheers.